Madam Rajavi, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I start by bringing you greetings from the House of Lords and the House of Commons of the British Parliament. I chair the British Parliamentary Committee for Iran Freedom. It has supporters in all political parties in both Houses of Parliament. And I say to you on behalf of that committee, Man Iraman. For it is my view, and it is our view, among the many supporters in the British Parliament, that we stand in the place of the people of Iran for freedom, for justice, for change, for democracy, and for diversity, all subjects that have been addressed earlier. And we are not only Iran, we are also Camp Liberty in this room this afternoon. Last week, but 50 years ago, as a schoolboy, I walked in a file for about 3 hours through a very cold London, and eventually I filed past the coffin of Winston Churchill, sitting in the Great Hall at Westminster in the Houses of Parliament in London. Last week, but not 50 years ago, 6 days ago, I went to a fantastic church service, an ecumenical church service at which the sermon was preached by a Jewish rabbi in Westminster Abbey to celebrate the liberation 70 years earlier of the concentration camp at Auschwitz, where alone 1 million people had been murdered during the Second World War. And what I think the juxtaposition of the anniversary of Churchill's death, in which I'd had that schoolboy experience, and what happened last Sunday, was that it taught me that if you have the will, if you have the determination, if you have the trust in your own confidence, and if you can gather around you people who will work with you with determination to the end you have given yourself, you will achieve. And that is why we are here today. That's why all over the world, politicians get together in different countries to support you, the Iranian community, to bring freedom back to your own country. And in Iran, that rank injustice, that collapse, as was said earlier, of the rule of law, as Madame Rajavi said, has lasted for over 3.5 decades. We must bring it to an end, and we have a right to expect our governments to bring it to an end. And we now have an international criminal court. Every person hanged in Iran for their political beliefs, every person whose face, every woman whose face has been damaged because she wore the wrong sort of clothes for the mullahs, every person who has been stoned, hanged in public, beheaded, every one of those people has the right to believe that the perpetrators will be brought to justice in the International Criminal Court in due course. But what are we doing with some of those people? We're saying to them, don't worry about all that. Come into the conference chamber and join us. Let's forget all that injustice. Let's talk about nuclear weapons. Let's trust you. Western leaders seem willing at the moment to decouple from the nuclear negotiations issues about human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, that is unacceptable. You cannot decouple human rights from negotiations about nuclear issues, because it is a test of that trust to say to them, you must stop your human rights violations. If they're not prepared to stop their worst human rights violations, they're not going to abandon their nuclear program. And the other message we have to get across is that there is an alternative to the mullahs for Iran. The leader is sitting at the table to my right. Her 10-point plan sets out very simply and very clearly that there can be a non-theocratic government for Iran in which men and women are equal, founded on democratic principles, with proper democratic institutions, including a new constitution, without abandoning any of the customs or principles of Iranian life. And I think that that's a cause worth struggling for, and I think that Western leaders should recognise, and their governments should recognise, that there is a government, sadly in exile, which is ready to take Iran into a new democratic era the moment you are given the opportunity. So I simply say to you on behalf of my British colleagues, we are with you to an extent, we are you, and whenever you need us, all you have to do is make the call.